Welcome. These will be my thoughts on Runaways Season 2, Episode 11, Last Waltz. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the show leading up to and including this episode, not for anything on the show that came out after it. Wouldn't be able to, haven't watched it past it yet. And I might spoil MCU and or adjacent, but only things that had come out when this episode first premiered. And yeah, another episode I loved. I want to start with some YouTube recommendations. So, in no particular order, Metis 1, the 2 weeks YouTube decided to drive me insane. Harlan Spinks, the sober team building cult experience. Legia Miller's The Political Divide is about to get so much worse. And is Ava de Dominici the new Wonder Woman? That's 5, isn't it? 1, 2, 3... Oh, hold on. I should add one more because I'm trying to do 5 each of these. Yeah. Honestly, also Captain Midnight's Peacock is still NBC's worst nightmare. All really excellent videos, well worth your time and attention. And I'm going to try to keep this as chronological as I can. So I did want to briefly note, I don't think I commented on the really excellent exchange between, so Frank says, "Leslie, please get in the chair." And Leslie responds, "Please, Frank, please go to hell." I mean, who can resist such a polite request? But the I think, doesn't that pretty much bring us to, yeah, so the start of this episode, yeah, I think they do a pretty good job of this thing of like, yeah, over the course, gradually, Chase is getting closer to being, by the end of this episode, he's okay with being back with his parents, which, they set up not that many episodes ago, he was absolutely not okay with. He was very upset with Gert. It broke them up, when she called Janet and told her that Chase would be at that hospital. And I think that, yeah, so he, he trusts the parents and drinks orange juice like he is dying of thirst, and there is, of course, poison. And I really loved the two, so Dale and Stacy, their faces when it's like, he collapses, and we're just like, well, there you go. And it's literally like Gert has just said the line. I kind of want like a version of that scene that plays out without Gert saying that, so he just drinks something and then collapses. Anyway, the I think that does bring us, let's see, what was the next, I'm okay, this is not going to be purely chronological, but yeah, early in the episode we see that Nico is absolutely not okay with yeah. So, Carolina comes in having brought some food, and yeah, Nico is telling her to leave. And Carolina's like, I brought you some, I just thought it might help if, should I finish the sentence or, and yeah, just like, we really see the toll it took on Nico, and, not terribly long after, she puts away the Staff of One, but she also does a, I think, Wiccan ritual, to no longer feel pain from the staff, her sister, Carolina. I think Tina was also one of them, so that is, I'm a little bit worried that that's going to, because, for the rest of the episode, she is the happiest we have seen, I think, this entire show. I don't think even flashbacks, like pre-Amy's death flashbacks, had her that happy. And, I think the others, accept it because, like, well, it's Molly's big day. And, maybe she's just, like, putting on a face so that, Molly's day isn't ruined by, Debbie Downer. But I am a little bit worried that this is because there's a trailer for, I forget when it comes out, but there's apparently a movie. Is it called Obsession, or am I misremembering? But like someone using magic to change how someone feels, and yeah, those kinds of things can have really negative consequences in fiction. So I am a little bit worried that this is actually just a different stage of things getting worse. But I do also think that makes if for more compelling, I think it will at least more compelling watching, because we've been watching the staff have a negative impact on her for a while now, and I don't know how you go bigger on that than her. Like, I genuinely think there is some chance that AWOL and the team were not just teleported, I guess, naked somewhere because their clothes were left. I think they're dead. I think she erased them from existence, and I don't know how you go big. I mean, I guess hypothetically, maybe by the finale of this or the next season, she will have gotten the staff back, feeling like it's necessary, and she'll kill a character that we care more about. So far she has really only killed evil characters. That could be something, but also playing that card immediately after, that would just be too soon, and that's, it has like a numbing effect if you have too much of that. But yeah, seeing this other thing, like, because yeah, that's yeah. Anyway, other than that, I think the next thing might be, yeah, so we have Victor claiming that, clean bill of health, because, Janet has not realized, she knows that he's losing time, but she hasn't realized how much he's lying. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of how that plays out, because I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go from here. And I guess that does... Oh, I think actually also maybe around here in the episode is where we have... So I appreciate that she gives they give a name by the end. I wish I remembered it. I think Zavin maybe. And I have to wonder if that's actually Jonah, because I mean, to get the obvious out of the way, that's definitely one of the aliens, or possibly a new... What I'm saying is, this is not a human being with no powers or alien lineage. Plain and simple. There has to be something else going on here. And I'm thinking it's Jonah who went into... Because, like, he was sort of like the leader alien. And that's the thing, like, I don't actually know if... Because in this episode, Zavin can imitate other people's appearance. Zavin grabs the appearance of that, nice person trying to give food to, and I like that we see, the food is left behind afterwards. And I liked the smile on the do-gooder's face. It really is wonderful when you can do something positive for someone in need. But yeah, I think that might just about... Yeah, so to briefly go over, so we see that, Zavin can take on, there's the T-1000 thing, being able to, if you touch a human being, you can take on their appearance. And I mean, another thing that's definitely, yeah, whoever or whatever Zavin is, that's definitely the voice that Carolina has been hearing and hears again in this episode. That's there's some psychic link there, but Zavin, before the end of this episode, could not find Carolina just anywhere. Had to go looking. But Zavin specifically says, once they touch someone, they can find them anywhere, and they touch Carolina. And I think, yeah, and there's definite recognition when, so, and that's another thing, So yeah, that's the thing. The touch also does have me wondering if this is one of the aliens, but then why aren't we seeing anybody else, who's being body snatched, use any of these powers? I guess it's maybe just not useful or necessary for them. I suppose that's possible. But because like Carolina was able to relate to the aliens in at the dig site when she touched the outside of the spaceship, and there was a look of recognition here, so maybe it is an alien from the spaceship. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm definitely looking for finding out more. There we go. Mouth decided to skip ahead a few words, and I did actually think that she was genuinely going to walk out on the quinceañera, but she does come back when she realizes she's not going to be able to find Zavin. But yeah, if Zavin meets up with not Victor and not Tina, that could be a problem. That's three aliens who know where the Runaways are, and I mean, I don't necessarily think revenge is 100% off the table. You know, they were hoping to return home, and apparently okay with that meaning the death of every human being. So that's yeah. Because keep in mind, I suppose it's not impossible. They just don't know that that's what it would mean. But hypothetically, if they do, couldn't they have communicated that to Carolina through the somewhat psychic connection when Carolina touched the outside of the spaceship? Because she never said that the aliens told her that would happen. She wasn't sure that would be the case before Jonah alien form told her. Anyway, I feel like that pretty much brings us to, yeah, so Alex is, he goes up to Molly, who is struggling to light something. And I like that we have, they have an entire table full of the weapons of the strike team. And then she accidentally knocks something over. We do see, she's got like a lighter. And she accidentally knocks something over. And he's like, I hope that wasn't one of the... That was pretty funny. That was a funny line. I suppose just in case I shouldn't finish that line on camera, but yeah. Let's see. Yeah, she's trying to light a snowball, which, yeah. The fact that was like, it was her birthday and she didn't tell anyone because they were fighting for their lives, and now, and I really like the thing about, she says that she doesn't really want, she can't have a quinceanera, but it's clear to the others deep down she wants one. She's just trying to not be difficult. She feels bad about, but she does want some celebration. And yeah, let's see. This is kind of the Alex admits he's going to be bad at this celebration episode, because first he says he is willing to sing the birthday song, but he's terrible at it. Later, he says he doesn't dance. Yeah. And I feel like that leads us to the sodium pentothal. So I don't love the trope of a guy embarrasses the woman he's with by telling people she doesn't want knowing it about sex. I don't know. I can appreciate there's some humor to be found in, Dale and Stacy specifically gave him sodium pentothal. He wouldn't be saying this stuff if they hadn't, and they don't end up getting anything useful out of him. And also, that's the first time he says he loves Molly, but not in that same way. And later in the episode, he says that again to her face, which is very nice. And I guess that does pretty much... Yeah, Tina shows up and goes, you're trespassing? Actually, no. I'm legally allowed to go into any YZ home. Should have read the fine print, Dale. Damn. But the insert your joke about tech billionaires stripping away our rights so that they can make more profit here. And the I mean, seriously, if you haven't already, let's see, I think, was it crap, I'm struggling to remember exactly who, but yeah, honestly, if you know, any there are a number of leftists here on YouTube who've covered the surveillance, among other things, that yeah. Anyway, I suppose the most recent really great video on a tech billionaire that I recall, the Morbid Zoo did one. Yeah, I think that does bring us to the, let's see. Right, so there's the thing about, you know, family is mentioned, and Alex has a eureka moment, and they, you know, they recruit Carolina. Nico does not join them, and the thing about, like, well, there's only two places he could have gone. He must have been driving. He must have gone to Dale and Stacy's. So, and they, you know, I think that's when they reiterate the thing about, like, well, he wouldn't go back to his parents because that's, you know, so. And I appreciated the point about, you know, well, are we sure they're being held against their will? And, you know, it is confirmed, or you know, asserted. And then we have Alex, you know, saying, okay, I don't want to be, like, just commanding you around, so I will leave up to the two of you who gets the gun. And they're like, what did you bring a gun for? And he's like, to use? I mean, not to use. Okay, I'm sorry. Listen, I am not hearing a lot of support for the shooting potentially our parents plan. So let's just table that for now. And you know what? I can take the feedback. It's Alex, you are going really, really far, and from, like, as an audience member invested in the safety of these characters, I'm concerned, but as an over-analyzing, you know, yeah, I'm really digging how because they really are, like, just taking him further and further, because this, you know, I appreciate, you know, some would say murder is, you know, there's a debate, which is worse, torture or murder. Ultimately, the torture he's engaged in so far has not been as extreme, you know, so extreme that I would personally say that you could say it's worse than murder. And yeah, so that was yeah, I'm genuinely worried where he's going to end up if he doesn't at some point slow down. And I totally understand it. I feel like they've really done the legwork to make this make sense. Anyway, I think that does bring us to the so yeah, you know, he gets out the fistigons, and they do the thing with the alarm system and everything. And yeah, I like the thing with, you know, Dale is, like, trying to stand up for himself, like, how much practice do you have with those fistigons? Like, saying, you know, you don't even know how to use those things. And then Alex is just like, not much. Which is, of course, him saying, I mean, I know it'll hurt, but I don't know how much. Do you want to find out? We could find out together how much me using these on you would hurt you. And so he gets back down. And this was also, I really feel like they've nailed the balance, because there's still, with Dale and Stacy, there are still a number of jokes. Like, if there is any, like, real sort of reliable comic relief pairing, on the show so far, I would definitely say it's them. If we're talking about like, oh, just one person who'll every so often say or do something very funny, I would say that's probably Molly. But the pairing, Dale and Stacy, and this thing of like how Stacy is just really fed up with him, which like, is probably alien infection, and the way that, visually she's still not got her glasses on. She took them off. I forget if it was the last episode, but certainly before this episode, has not put them back on yet. It actually very much, I kind of get the sense that with her, the alien is in the driver's seat all the time. I don't really see any indication that that's not the case. Whereas with Tina and Victor, there certainly are times where that's not true. So, yeah, and let's see. It's too bad they're poisoned, because those pancakes do sound delicious. Or wait, no, I mean, Tina started eating some, so I guess they're not poisoned. Maybe it's just the OJ that is. Anyway, I think that does bring us to... Right, and also liked Chase's, the actor playing Chase, his performance during sodium pentothal. The way he's just like, he's just kind of happy, he's so sad. That worked, I thought. And it's not really a way we're used to seeing Chase, and it's the kind of thing where you kind of need something extra to sell it. He doesn't go like mega like Nick Cage or something, but it's more than we've seen. And that part where Tina's like, start talking, and he's like, I told you I can't. And I think it's Dale who says, she means us. And the look on Chase's face is like, okay. And yeah, so they are able to free Gert and Chase, and Tina ends up back with the... Oh, right, actually, yeah, Tina spends a little time with Gert and Chase, and there's a little bit of information shared, which I did think worked well as this, so now Chase, part of why he's leaving is that he feels they're not going to be able to fight their parents. They can hide, but not fight. And yeah, Tina continuing to very much be... Although I suppose, before the alien, she was imitating 50 Shades of Grey. So I don't know if... No, I think this is the alien. But yeah, she's still all about how... She even uses the word orgasmic. So that's, yeah. Let's see. I think... Does that pretty much... So yeah, they're able to get Gert and Chase out of there, but Old Lace, stopped and put back. And yeah, the discussion, Stace says, they're gonna release Old Lace so that, hopefully in theaters, so that the yeah, the psychic connection will have it going, leading them to Gert. And then she intends to kill the dinosaur. There's a sentence. But the, let's see, right, also the part where, Dale confronts her and says, that was really hard for me to say. And she's like, you want a cookie? I don't know. It's kind of working for me, the way that, and it's also the kind of thing they have done it a bunch of times in, let's see, it's this episode, the one before it. I forget if it started before that. I feel like it's going to culminate in Dale realizing there's something actually wrong here. This is not just Stacy being a little weird or something. I could absolutely see him and Janet working out that there's something extra going on here. Very clever with the robocall, and it pretty quickly worked too. And I think that does... Let's see, there was at least one other thing that I really wanted to make sure to say. I guess that actually is when they planned for the quinceanera, and I loved that we spent like several minutes on this. We get a montage set to a pop song, and just the way that everybody's happy. And this is also one of those times where, okay, so I guess, okay, slightly mixed. So I guess I'll get the negative out of the way. Still occasionally issues with the way they're writing Gert as far as the social justice warrior thing is going. Once again, I agree with her politics. I don't mind them joking about it. I've seen really, really funny jokes about, those of us on the left. Let's see. I think what's that name again? The OT, or One Topic at a Time, has some really, really funny jokes about. I feel like maybe also Jamie Dodger has, yeah, memory's not where it used to be, as far as I recall. And, but yeah, so it's not that. But, in earlier episodes, they would push it too far. In this one, it just felt kind of weird, because you have that thing about, like, I think, is it maybe Nico who says, maybe Molly doesn't want to dance with one of the two guys? And then Gert says, I assumed that she would go heteronormative. I'm sorry. Did their lines accidentally get swapped at some point in the writing process? Like, I agree that she would use the term heteronormative, but, like, I think it feels like, should one of them, maybe, let's see. Well, actually, yeah, I'm not sure who would have said. Maybe Alex might have said, like, so which of the two guys is Molly gonna dance with? And then, Gert would say, way to be heteronormative about it, Alex. Something like that. It really feels weird to me to see. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like, in earlier episodes, they've also had jokes about, like, oh, she's, or jokes, not necessarily jokes, but they've had a thing about, like, maybe she's a little bit of a hypocrite or something, which I do appreciate. I have seen some people will claim to be leftists and, actually not really believe in it, and that's, of course, quite frustrating. That should be called out. But then at other times, it definitely seems like she believes in it. So it feels still like the writers are a little bit confused about her character. But a little bit later, we have there's the applying of makeup, and Gert goes up and jokes, repeat after me, there's no way to improve me, or something along those lines. And then all of the girls are saying it and laughing together. And, that's such a great, because, like, she's being self-deprecating. She knows Molly wants to wear makeup right now. And she's saying, oh, I guess this is the part where I say that this is patriarchy, that sort of thing, that's great. And once again, I'm sorry, but I don't know that I can think of a actually good, funny joke that made me laugh about social justice that came from a conservative. Like, all of them, I've laughed many times at, like, yeah, I get we can be a little annoying sometimes about it, it's fine to laugh at, but it should be jokes that are, like, people who actually do care about this stuff and understand it. Because a lot of the time, like, when conservatives try to joke about it, they clearly don't understand it at all. Like, it's similar to how, the whole accidental ally thing is, a lot of that is when transphobes will, like, tell a trans woman that she will never be a man, because so many transphobes, they don't bother doing even a tiny bit of research. Like, yeah, a trans woman was assigned male at birth and has now transitioned into being a woman. That's why it's trans woman. But they assume, no, like, a trans woman, that must be, they must have been assigned female at birth and want to be a man, like, and I appreciate they wouldn't phrase it like that, but just, like, and it's this kind of fascinating idea that a number of bigots have, where they feel in their gut that if they learn even a little bit about the individuals, the groups, the cultures that they're bigoted against, they will immediately start developing empathy towards them, and they will no longer be bigoted, and they can't. That is unacceptable to them. And I mean, obviously, knowing, I've personally, the people I have empathized with for the longest, the minority groups that I've empathized with for the longest, which for those who don't watch every video, because I feel like I do probably bring this up almost every video nowadays, um, women and Muslim immigrants primarily to here to Denmark, my country, haven't really had that much contact with, Middle Eastern Muslim immigrants to other countries. Yeah, they were ones that I talked to even as a child. I try to have empathy for all minorities, but it definitely, actually meeting people from those minority groups, you talk to them, you know, relate to them. That's a major way to develop empathy. But the fact that a number of bigots realize that, and they think it would be worse for them to develop empathy than, not. I don't know. I just think it's a bit of a, they're telling on themselves by refusing to do even a tiny little bit of research. Anyway, I think that does. But yeah, seeing them go around buying all these things, and then we see, they did make a snowball quinceañera cake, and they, all the string lights and all this stuff, just, yeah, really great. And that's such a, I agree with them. It is extremely important that we every so often, especially when times are tough, if you can, obviously don't spend money that you can't afford to spend on something like that, but we have to every so often lighten the mood. Otherwise, we just risk burnout. But I think that does pretty well. Yeah, so as soon as the robocall went through, I was thinking, is Chase really going to ruin the quinceañera? And then he does go back, but he ruins it not very long after still. And I do appreciate, ultimately, it's the show is not going to let them be happy for very long. I guess that does. I like that, when a complete stranger goes up to Carolina and says her name and hi, she just responds, hi. She doesn't look up immediately, but she does just, she doesn't immediately assume, oh no, what's happening here. And afterwards she does ask, do I know you? And yeah, just, she is still very much this, positive person. And yeah, indeed, not quite in private, but Alex did floss. And I think that does. Yeah, I thought it worked well, the ending with Chase rejoining his parents. I forget if I've already mentioned, but it is making me at least a little bit uncomfortable. The kind of amorous stuff between someone who is, has one of the aliens inside, and that's changing their behavior, and then one who doesn't. And it's one of those things where, would it have been terrible to just, save that for, maybe have one actual couple that both have the aliens in, and that's why that happens, but yeah. Anyway, I guess that does just leave. So yeah, the whole cult thing, Geboren Church, really, really compelling here. They take her to the crater, and just seeing, Leslie has worked her entire life for the cult, and now she's at their mercy. Very, very effective, and I really love how much she's resisting, and also the fact that, so the moment, I'm fairly confident. I'm not going to look it up because my wrists are really, really sore right now, but I'm fairly confident that I know the actress playing Susan from Prison Break. And I loved her work on there. I'm not going to spoil it because it is see, I can't really say very much, but just I absolutely am in awe of the actor's performance on that show, and so far I'm really loving it here as well. I'm almost certain it's the same actor actress. Yeah, this thing of like Susan pushes, and then suddenly she says something that is extremely specific. David would think of you as a disappointment. He would be disgusted if you saw you right now. That whole thing really is like, yeah, we were asking, as Leslie did, who are you? What is this? How is this? And yeah, it turns out that's her birth mother, and she wanted Jonah away from Leslie, and so they've had her there for all those years. That's horrifying. And she's so deep into the programming that when her real name is said, she says there have to be consequences. Like, this is a really compelling. At first, I wasn't sure where they were going to go, because, like, okay, I appreciate the sort of, I don't know if it's poetic justice, because she's trying to shut down the church, but this thing, if it's the trope, it's the which I use that word neutrally, not pejoratively. Let's see. I believe it's referred to as, you may be through with the past, but the past isn't through with you. She has worked for the church for so long now that she's trying to shut it down. And that's also, there's this thing about how, I believe the phrasing is that a cult leader is never more dangerous than when they are about to lose power. And that's what we're seeing in Frank. And I also really love those couple of lines of like, I didn't really buy that line. Frank, can you maybe do another take, you actor? That was wonderful. That was so perfect. It's just, yeah. And and there's also that thing about, well, he found a part that he really liked to play. Your whole life has been fake. Oh, you've been working for the church? Right. But yeah, I wasn't entirely sure where they were going with it before that reveal, the revelation that really is her mother, which is a fascinating, because like, I don't know if this, the thing is, there's a couple of ways they could go with this, so I'm just going to briefly theorize. One thing is, they could have this be like, end up with a fairly happy reunion, but it might take some deprogramming, possibly both before and after they escape. And certainly she's going to need Susan's help if they're going to escape the crater. She managed to sneak in and look at the files, but she's not going to be able to get away from there without, but so that's one option. But they could also go really tragic and have Susan either simply unable to be deprogrammed or refuse. And in this episode, we do see she is very resistant to the idea, because I don't know that what was said in that room was being monitored. I think it was just the way that, like, because the way that people are trained is to feel a sense of fear when trained, for example, for a cult, trained to feel fear when they encounter something that runs contrary to what those training them want. And because I feel like she could have reacted sooner if it was, because like the things that Leslie was saying, this is potentially a problem for Susan. And so when the let's see, as soon as she starts talking about like, you are really my mother, and I feel like that's because that's probably something Susan doesn't want anyone else to realize, especially if she wants to be in contact with her. I feel like there's probably some kind of rule they would separate them. And yeah, I think that does pretty much cover. once again, there was a tiny bit. It was only very briefly that Old Lace looked bad as far as the CG went. I hope that at some point in the show they get to a level where they just never push past what they can do. But I do also think they did a good job of limiting it and still having something really compelling there. Yeah, I think that might pretty much cover. I like the part where the discussion about like all of us have had really negative experiences. I think it was Alex who pointed out to all of them in arguing for the quinceañera. I guess that does pretty much cover the. I personally don't know enough about quinceañeras to say if this is how those are supposed to go or if they had to change something or the like. Honestly, I think other than this, one of the only places I remember hearing it mentioned, at least in fiction, is End of Watch. But yeah, I feel like there's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to say. What was it again? I liked Janet saying I got to talk about the stuff I know at the Pride meeting. And let's see. Yeah, that thing about like, do you think Tina is going to say to Pride, what happened here? Tina's going to do what's best for Tina. And there's a mention of, behaving weirdly, so I think there is a chance that they will realize. I don't know if it's going to be by the finale of this season or it's going to happen sometime next season. But yeah, it definitely looks to me like we're looking at, Pride versus Alien Pride and, Runaways somewhere in the middle, because it continues to be this thing of this vacillation. Sometimes the Pride parents will do something positive, but not all of the Runaways necessarily see it, and some of them say this doesn't prove anything, so there's a really compelling conflict there. Genuinely moving when Victor tells Chase about how he's getting worse, and that's why he has to come back. And powerful when Gert confronts Chase, and he does point out, you don't even know why I'm going back, And I appreciated her pointing out, nothing is going to convince you otherwise. You've made up your mind. Erase and rewind.